the first question. So you were the editor of The Edge originally, which is sort of a fanzine magazine. Oh, The End. Sorry, yeah, The End. Sorry, yeah. How did all that come about?
I was going to a lot of concerts, but I was also going to a lot of football matches, and just somebody said to me, after when we were talking in pubs after gigs or after matches, you should write some of these stories down, and at the time I didn't think much of it, but then I went to see The Clash in Paris and spent a few nights, 7 nights doing on with The Beat and Wahid. So I had loads of these photographs that I'd taken. I thought, I should start a magazine maybe, And really it was, at the time, there was never any magazines which crossed over between football, fashion and music, so it was just an idea to do that, because I thought basically lots of people go to concerts, lots of people also go to football matches, and what I found at the time was that a lot of the fanzines didn't really reflect Liverpool humour, which is it's a very cruel humour. John Lennon always used to say that.
Yeah.
It's a very cruel, anyone who's been to Liverpool will know that.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's how you react to that humour. If you react positively to it and give a bit of stick back, you usually accept it.
Yeah.
So I wanted the magazine to reflect what people would be observations. So there was never any jokes in it. It was literally observations of everyday life in Liverpool. And that ran for a few years, but a few people were sceptical, saying, you won't get anyone at the match buying this,
Yeah.
It's just, won't. But eventually it became a phenomenon, really. And the idea was to make people laugh. And it was also to attack every sacred cow in Liverpool,
Yeah.
So anything that was regarded as the sacred cow was attacked.
Right.
The one thing we didn't really attack was the Beatles, because they never really, with us growing up, they didn't really mean that much at the time, because we were into the Jam, and groups like that. And Paul Weller loved the Beatles, so I think they were given
a wide berth.
But, obviously all the Jimmy Tarbuck, Cilla Black, they were all targets, Of course, local celebrities as well,
Yeah.
But the idea was to make people laugh, and it wasn't supposed to be taken too seriously,
Yeah.
I mean, people called it the Bible for the terraces of the 80s, but what? We just used to take the piss out of everyone, So anyone writing in from other parts of the country, we just immediately ridicule them. If they said, like, oh, we're dressing like this, or we're dressing like this, it was an immediate... we saw ourselves, well, I did anyway, as the private eye of the working class for Liverpool.
Right.
That was the idea.
Yeah.
So it was like, even though you got student rag mags, which had jokes in them all the time.
Yeah.
I used to look at the private eye quite a lot, and I thought it was funny, but it was obviously from a different class.
Yeah.
Also, it was the one thing that stimulated really was the Royal Wedding in '81, as well as the Clash. But I saw this. It was like a little handout in Probe Records in Liverpool, and it was absolutely caustic, but it was political as well.
Yeah.
And it's about the Royal Wedding next to poverty, and mass unemployment. And I thought, I was laughing my head off reading it, but I thought, no one's going to read this, because it's just a tiny minority of punks in Liverpool might read it.
Yeah.
Well, no, read it, but what about if we had a publication which would hook them on with football and concerts and group interviews and that, but we'd also have that cruel political humour in there.
Right, cool. So how did that, because you didn't really want to be a singer to start with, did you? So how did all that come about?
By mistake, really. I didn't really, I wanted to be I felt like being in a group, because I'd been in a group at school and I'd played a bit of bass guitar, but there was like a couple of other people in that group who were like more domineering,
Yeah.
I was more of the George Harrison type, you know. But basically, they went off to university. So anyway, I was in my mate's pub one night, and he said, I said, what's that noise there? And he said, that's our Ollie rehearsing with his band, and that was his younger brother. And I said, right, let's go and have a listen to them. So it was during the days when Sunday afternoon they used to shut between 2 and 5. Remember those days?
Oh, I do, yeah.
So they were rehearsing in between, you know, and they didn't have a singer. And so I said, I'll have a go, you know. And that's how it came about. And it wasn't a case of, there was a few, it was just a group of, didn't look the same. They were all different types of styles, you know.
Yeah.
There was a couple of goths in the band.
Right.
A couple of lads who you wouldn't call anything, just weren't smoothies or scallies or anything like that, but they were just normal people, you know. And then there was me who was doing the end by then. And they probably saw me as like, you know, the editor at the end, which was for like the scallies or whatever, you know, of Liverpool, you know. So one of the group decided that he thought my voice was interesting, you know. Passionate, he said. Which might be another way of saying technically it's not an opera singer, but it's passionate. But so then he got together with another lad called Steve Grimes, and we rehearsed in a garage a couple of times, and I had to sing like "Waiting for the Man" and a Rolling Stone song and something else. It was just to see with Steve Grimes whether he liked it or not, you know. The two lads who were the gothy types in the band who had long hair, you know, they weren't gothies, they were more hippie-ish, you know.
Yeah.
They didn't like, you know, me singing because I had short hair, you know.
Yeah.
I think they were saying, oh no, it wasn't a proper band, you see, it was a few people getting together for a jam.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then when we rehearsed in the garage and this lad said, I want to start a band with you, you know, and we'll get Steve Grimes in, and I know a drummer called Andy McFan, you know, so that's how it started. And we were originally called The Excitements, which was their name originally from a few years before, you know. So we basically pulled the strings and got people together, you know.
Yeah.
But then the songs that they were doing, I'd never written a song, you see, but the songs I was singing, I didn't like the lyrics. It wasn't the songs that I didn't like, it was the lyrics. And I thought, I can't sing these because it was all about say you love me and, you know, it wasn't, you know, and I was saying, I've got these other songs, you know, which are like more socially aware lyrics, you know.
Yeah.
So people said, okay, let's have a go with them. And that's how it started, me writing, really. So it's, you know, if they'd have been saying, oh no, we want you to sing these songs, I would have had to make a decision whether to stay and do it. But it wasn't, there was no business plan.
Right.
It wasn't a 5-year plan, it was all serendipity and chance, really, you know.
Yeah.
And we used to go and rehearse in a farm just outside Liverpool, a place called McGull. So we were rehearsing on this farm, and we just ended up calling ourselves the farm.
Ah, that's where it came from. I thought it was that estate in Liverpool that it might have come from.
No, that's a myth. That's an urban myth.
Ah, okay, right.
It's an urban myth. Which has been put in some books, you know, and it's wrong. Right. And I remember someone on the radio ringing up when, you know, for a prize for the farm in the early 90s, and they said, where did they get the name from? Someone rang up and said, oh, it's some Caddick's farm just outside McGull in Lydiard. Wrong. Next person rings in, oh, it's from Council Farm Estate in outside, you know, and out to council say, yeah, that's the winner, yeah, you go. What was the first answer was the right one, you know.
How did the songwriting work in the band? Did you? I mean, you wrote the lyrics to take it, but what about? Did everybody have roles or?
Yeah, well, Steve was he came up with the chord progressions,
right?
And then I'd put lyrics to them, but I was still doing some of his songs then.
Yeah.
You know, I had a great song called "Don't Send Postcards." And it was a brilliant song, but that got dropped as well as other songs. You know, but my first attempts at songs were songs like Memories, you know, and Violent Playground and Glimmer of Hope.
Right.
Some of them you might find some of them, but they were like more socially aware, I think, you know. And No Man's Land was one of the first ones, you know, that was which became All Together Now, you know.
Yeah.
So it was my attempt to be, you know, Joe Strummer was my hero. Paul Well and Joe Strummer, like, you know, and I was thinking, we've got to have stories in songs. You can't just have, you can't just have Say You Love Me.
Yeah. Say
You Love Me, you know, and repeat it, you know. So I suppose it was a bit like, you know, how when the Beatles started writing songs, they were like, you know, simple songs and melodies, but within 2 years, they'd gone on to 2 or 3 years, they were at Revolver stage, weren't they, you know, so it was just progression, really, I think, you know, and over the years, that's what was happening. Steve have a few chords, and then I'd try and put a melody and lyrics to his chords in a rehearsal.
Yeah.
And then it all came to a head, and we did our very first John Peel session in 1983. And the bass player, who was the originator of the band, when the engineer said, who wrote these songs, I said Hooton and Grimes, which I'd written the lyrics and melodies, and Steve had written the chord progression. And he was the bass player, and he said, no, you know, I should be down on the songwriting. I said, no, well, he didn't write them. He wrote the bass lines. If you write a song, we'll put your name down.
Yeah.
And it caused murder, you know, and within a few weeks, he left the band.
Right.
But he'd also said that, he'd said to me privately that it's me and you, Peter, it's me and you, Peter. Dismissing Steve, even though Steve was writing the songs, you know, so it was a bit...
Yeah.
It was difficult to comprehend. I mean, I wouldn't like him to put his name in or go into that in detail, but it caused a bit of friction, and so then we needed a bass player. And we had some great bass players come to auditions, but none of them looked right.
Yeah.
And then Carl Hunter came with and he wasn't as good as the other bass players, some of the other bass players we had, but he looked the part.
Right.
And that's how we were judging people, you see. You know, thinking, if you look the part, you're in. You know, we don't want anyone doing any slap bass and level 42 shite.
Right, yeah.
You know, we wanted, you know, someone who knew riffs, you know.
Yeah. So when you write a song, how long does it take to actually sort of get to a position where you're happy to record it? Do you sort of polish it with live acts and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, originally in those days, it was to see how it went down in live gigs.
Yeah.
And if it went down well at live gigs, we'd say, we'll try and record that next time, you know.
Yeah.
So that's how it would happen, but it just depended. I mean, most of our recordings were Peel sessions or Janice Long sessions.
Yeah.
Or even Peter Powell, we did a session with him for the Oxford Roadshow. And so all our first recording attempts were really in sessions, and that was basically a live performance.
Right, yeah.
You know, there was no overdubs, not many anyway, and you had to do it in a day. You know, John Peel never came to the studio. It's like,
didn't he?
All illusions were shattered. You know, it's like, you had usually a grumpy engineer who did it every day. You know, and I mean, the best one we had was Mark Ratcliffe, who ended up the DJ, you know, and ended up on Radio 6.
Yeah. And
he actually took a bit of interest because he's a music fan, you see. All the others were just doing it as a job. I mean, I remember the first one we had Mark the Hooton drummer. And he was really grumpy, and he wasn't happy with Andy McFadden's drum kit, you know. And he said, do you know how to tune a drum kit? You know, fuck off, you knobhead. That was the general attitude. But, you know, it was a great experience. It was a brilliant experience, but it's like when later on years, after we did our first Top of the Pops, and it's all an illusion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's all an appearance of something that it isn't, you know. The lack of crowd.
Yeah.
And the fact that the the studio, the producers and that used to bully all the audience. Get out the way! You know, it was fucking embarrassing. You know, but, we couldn't believe it, and like there was only probably 50 people in there, but it looked like hundreds, didn't it? You know, it was all an illusion. You know, I'm just trying to find. I just remembering what the Hoop was from Dale Griffin.
Ah, right.
Dale Griffin was what the Hoop was from. So he obviously thought I shouldn't be doing this. Much better than this, but obviously. He might mean getting a share of the royalties on what the Hoople. He was having to do a day job. But, you know, it was a great experience. And we had some laughs doing it, you know. But I remember Peel saying to us, because Peel was a big fan of the End, used to champion the End magazine, you know. And he said, I can't give you a session until you get a good live review, you know. Can't be nepotistic. Just because I know you. So then we got a great live review from Liverpool. And then he said, "Oh, we can get you in now because the enemy have featured you." You know, so
cool.
That's the way it works. We didn't realise at the time that you needed press officers. We thought everything was a meritocracy. You know, we didn't realise that you've got to pay a press officer £1,000 a month retainer to get you in the music mags. You know, we just thought if people like it and they do review of it, you'll get an interview. You know, eventually. But it wasn't like that, you know. We never had a press officer. I mean, obviously that's what happens when you sign to a record company. But we did have lots of people helping us. The first person to help us was Suggs.
Oh yeah.
Took us down to a studio in London, the Liquidator studio, which was Magnus' studio. We met him on the Oxford Road show, and I think he saw something of the Magnus, you know, in the farm, you know,
like a personality.
Lads bunch of lads having a laugh, you know. And so we invited us down to the studio and we did Memories there and I think Information Man, another song, but, you know, he didn't charge us for any of it, you know. I mean, we had to get our own accommodation, but the studio and engineers and everything was free. It was brilliant.
Ah, cool.
And then Brian Travers from UB40 tried to get us a deal. And then Paul Heaton tried to get us a deal. So we were having people all along the way that kept us saying from carrying on. But really, the thing that kept us going was the money we were getting from the Peel sessions. If we hadn't have had that, I reckon we could have packed in. You know?
Well, because. So I was going to say, you sound changed, didn't it? You actually made a decision to turn to a more sort of dancier sort of sound, didn't you? At some point.
Yeah, well, that was after seeing Big Audio Dynamite in '86. So in '86, we saw Big Audio in Liverpool at the Estate nightclub. And I went, and it just blew me mind. You know? Spaghetti Western samples, you know, drum loops. I just said I can't remember exactly who I was with, but I'm pretty sure I was with our helper manager at the time, Simon Moran, who went on to SJM Promotions, you know. But I just declared, I said, that's the future of music. That is the future. And that's year zero, you know. And I know the Clash has been trying it with Magnificent Seven and tracks like that, you know, incorporating, you know, New York style hip hop loops with guitars. But that was it. That for me was like Saul on the road to Damascus time, you know. But we tried to develop the sound, but we never had the equipment. We couldn't afford a sampler at the time.
Quite expensive, weren't they?
They were very, very expensive. You know, we couldn't afford it. So it wasn't until a couple of years later that we were able to get a sampler, probably from another Peel session. And we were able to get the sampler, so we had the brass section. But we said to one of the players in the brass section, you learn how to use the sampler. And that was his job. In the meantime, in Manchester, about 89 it was, you know, Manchester groups were incorporating dance grooves as well, which through remixes really, through Hallelujah, through Andy Weatherall's remix and things like that, and DJs were getting involved. So it was the perfect timing, really, But we'd been working on it for a couple of years before that.
Yeah.
It's just that it hadn't come to fruition. We'd give Terry Farley, who ended up helping us out and producing us as well, we'd give him a version of Stepping Stone, which was a dancier version. And he listened to it. He said, I like the idea, but it's got to be slowed down a lot. And, no one in London, it's too fast. It's too fast.
Yeah.
So it was an education as well from people like that,
Yeah.
And so it wasn't, the first gig we did with the sampler was in 89.
Right.
We didn't record anything until 1990 with using that technology.
Yeah. You obviously know your big hit. The most well-known hit is All Together Now, obviously. So how did all that come about?
Yeah. For a few years, Steve, who was telling me to use No Man's Land on what he called the wall advert.
Right.
The wall advert on the telly was Pachelbel's Cannon.
Yeah.
And Brian Eno had used it quite a lot. We were big fans of Brian Eno. So we'd used it quite a lot. And obviously in chord progressions, Pachelbel's Cannon was used quite a lot,
Yeah.
And it's well documented that. So I always put off the idea, not because I didn't think it would work. I just thought, no, I like No Man's Land. It was a fast, like a jam type thing, But anyway, we did try it in 89. And it worked, but it only worked because we slowed it right down and put a drum loop under it. And then put the Pachelbel's chords over the top of it, and it just worked. We didn't have a chorus then. We just had the verses and the music, And then eventually through jamming in rehearsals, we came up with the All Together Now lyric, But the hits before that, Stepping Stone and Groovy Train, had paved the way for that, really,
Yeah.
Stepping Stone used a loop from Snap, The Power.
Oh, yeah. I remember, yeah.
And next, Terry Farley brought that in. He said, if you do Stepping Stone to this, he said, this is a massive underground hit in London. He said, it's on white label, but it'll never be a hit. I've got the power. But by the time we released Stepping Stone in the April, Snap was already being taken up by a major company, and they were #1 on the charts. But no one ever really accused us of taking the loop, it sounded a bit different, Anyway, it wasn't until a few years later that someone got in touch with us from a group called Maltronics. Maltronics, who were a hip hop band, He moved to England, the man behind it, and he saw an advert for Clark's with Stepping Stone on.
Right.
And he got in touch with his lawyer got in touch with our lawyer and say, I'm claiming royalties for using my loop and Mantronics. But they'd used it.
Right.
Even though it was our label, but we never had shares in the label. That's another thing. We set the label up with somebody's money, but we never really got shares in it.
Right.
Because it should have had 50-50, We had 50-50 share in the profits, but we were never on the board. So when it all started to go pear-shaped, we had no decisions. But I told Produce that Macarena had used the vocal loop sample from Higher and Higher, and it's a massive feature of the song.
Yeah.
But what the musicologists could argue is that it was only a small feature of our song. So it's all about technicality. So I think they did pay something out, but not from, that was a massitive worldwide hit.
Yeah.
And what they tried to do was recreate it. We heard some of the tracks where they tried to recreate it. It's the
Yeah.
That's from one of our remixes.
Right.
Of Higher and Higher, from a Terry Farley remix. And it's in the middle eight, but it's not a substantial part of our song.
Right.
So they argued it wasn't a substantial part of our song. I mean, they probably had better lawyers than us. I don't know. I mean, if we'd have the Rolling Stones lawyers, we probably would have took them to the cleaners.
Yeah.
I don't think God you were willing to spend that much money on it, you know. But in the end, they did get a pay. You know, it wasn't as nominal, though. It was a token gesture.
Yeah. Well, you eventually signed for a big label, didn't you? Well, why did you go with
Sony?
Sony, yeah.
Yeah, well, we signed. We were with Produce, which is our own label in the UK, but then we were signed to Sire in America, which is Seymour Stein's label. And they seem to be putting a lot of effort into us, you know. Of all the groups that they'd signed, they were putting more resources into the farm, I think, than some of the other British groups that they'd, which caused a bit of resentment with the other British groups, you know. But Seymour Stein thought, you know, the farm can be massive in America, and that he did, you know, he definitely thought that. That's why he pumped resources into us. But anyway, we were. There was a bit of a problem with. It was a communication problem with our own record company Produce, you know, because they started off as like people who were willing to lend us money, and then because of all the success, I think they started thinking it was down to their decisions, you know. And I mean, they did work hard. There's no doubt about it, but most of the decisions were done by our management and the group. In conjunction, you know, this is going to be the next single, this is going to be the next single, we're going to get this plugger, we're going to get this press officer. I mean, they didn't have any influence on that. But then when we had the #1 album and everything was going hunky-dory, then we went to America, you know, and I think they felt like as if there was a problem over the publishing.
Right.
We'd kept our own publishing, and Bill Drummond had gone to a meeting with them, like a course on how to be successful in the music industry, something like that.
Yeah.
And Bill Drummond said, to Produce, you must be raking it in, you know, you'll have the publishing as well, won't you? Well, we never give them the publishing, you see. We signed that to Virgin. You know, and there was a reason for that. We were always told to keep your publishing separate. But also, we couldn't have been asked. We were getting advances off them for the record side. Yeah. To keep the band in wages. So when Virgin offered us, you know, hundreds of thousands of pounds for the publishing, we couldn't have gone then to Produce and give us another couple of 100,000. Do you know what I mean? It was like, I wouldn't say it was a way of protecting them, but we didn't want to be that cheeky with them and say, look, we're getting these offers off Virgin and EMI Publishing and all these publishing companies. Why don't you set up the publishing company, but you'd have to give us an advance of so much. They were already moaning about money, so it was the intricacies of the music industry that a lot of people don't really see or understand, you know. And really, I think it caused friction between the manager and the record company. So by the time late in '91. They were starting to sign other groups in Liverpool that we had no knowledge of. You know, we were thinking, well, you know, why are they signing these groups? They haven't got a hope in hell.
Yeah.
And it wasn't in fitting with what we thought Produce should have been.
Right.
So it all came to a bit of a sticky end. So Kevin, our manager, said, I think you should sign with Sony, you know.
Right. Okay.
Who were willing to offer you a lot of money, you know.
Yeah.
But then we thought if we sign with them, it would be, you know, we had about 20 people on the payroll by then. One thing Suggs told us, don't get your mates on the payroll. What was the first thing we did? Put all our mates on the payroll. I mean, it's classic stuff, you know. But it says there's only 8 minutes left.
Yeah, I downloaded it the other day, so I didn't realise it was a limit on the length. Sorry about that. So a couple more questions. So when you signed for Sony, because you staged persona when you went on stage, you just dressed in sort of normal street clothes, didn't you? And that was a great thing to see. Did anyone try to change that at all about, you know, your image and that sort of thing? No? Well,
we did a few... we did a few things where Kevin, the manager, was saying, you've got to be, you know, you're getting stick for dressing like plumbers and electricians.
Right, yeah.
See, this was before Oasis made that acceptable.
Yeah,
you know? And like at the time, we know for a fact, because Alan McGee's told us, Oasis was studying everything we did, you know.
Oh, really?
And Alan McGee was.
Yeah.
Alan McGee was because Alan McGee's bought our bass player a pint a few years ago. And I said, that's Oasis. He said, well, what do you mean? He said, I saw what you were doing. I thought, that can work, you know.
Yeah.
I know that gave them the idea, because obviously they were just cagoules.
Yeah.
That's what we were.
Yeah.
You know. But, and Sean Ryder said to me that at Paul Ryder's funeral, you know, he said, we seen you on the telly on the Oxford Road show, and that gave us encouragement to be like that, you know.
Yeah.
Because they were already dressed like that.
Yeah.
Because it was a Manchester, that's what people in the city dressed like, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But it gave them encouragement that if fucking hell, Scousers can do it, we can do it, you know. So, yeah, but none of that's in any books, because it's not, you know, because the groups don't talk about that, you know. But in terms of, we were the first band like that. There's no doubt about it.
Is it okay to include that in my book, by the way?
Sorry?
Is it okay to include that in my book?
Yeah. But, you know, certainly in '92, you know, we sort of like did a video where we were all dressed like the Guns N' Never Own. But it was more of a clash look, I think. You know? But it was, you know, we weren't comfortable with it. You know?
Yeah. What do you think about the way that music's gone these days? It's I think there's still a lot of creativity out there, but I think that this is just my theory. That record companies are less likely to take a chance on someone that's a little bit, you know, different to mainstream. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's hard for up and coming groups. It really is, you know, because I mean, obviously you say, I'll get stuff on Spotify, but there's so much stuff on Spotify. It's actually getting listened to, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
And it's a gradual process for groups. I think the best thing for groups to do is just to get out live and get a bit of a following, you know. And that's what it's always been like.
Yeah. So
it hasn't changed that much in that respect. But, you know, I look at Spotify and I think, I've never heard of them, and they got 20 billion downloads. You know, if I just look at Spotify now, so say the Slow Readers Club. Now, I've heard of that name. I looked on Spotify today, 75,000 monthly listeners.
Wow.
But then there's another Liverpool artist, Lapsley. Have you ever heard of Lapsley?
No, I've not actually.
No. 1.3 million monthly listeners.
Bloody hell.
Now, she was a bit of every manager in Liverpool was trying to manage her a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I thought, she's disappeared off the face of the earth. What's happened to her? And then I look on Spotify and she's got 1.3 million monthly listeners. So it just shows you it's in a different way because the NME isn't around. We used to get our information from the music press.
Yeah.
And because that's not there now, it's difficult, you know. But say, for example, the group Red Rum Club, have you heard of them?
No, I thought it was knowledgeable as well.
Liverpool group, but they were stuck on 30 to 40,000 monthly listeners for a couple of years during lockdown. Now they've got out there, they're doing live stuff. They've sold out 2 nights at the Olympia,
right? Which
are 2,000 capacity. You know.
Yeah.
Now they've got 167,000 monthly listeners.
There you go.
So it's a gradual process, you know. But you know, to get nowadays, you talk about getting music and films to cross over onto Spotify, you know.
Yeah. Like
that. I mean, it's Spotify is great in one respect, but they just don't pay enough, you know. Yeah. I mean, I can tell you now exactly how many people are listening to The Farm, you know. It's 57 people listening to The Farm now.
Brilliant.
That's a you know, and it'll tell you in the last 28 days, in the last seven days, you know, the number of streams you've had, where they're from. Yeah. So you get top cities as well, you know. Your age groups. You know.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
Their age groups. We've got no one under 18.
Right.
3% 18 to 22. 7% 23 to 27, 11% 28 to 34, 23% 35 to 44, 45 to 59, 49%, which is what you'd expect with them. And over 60 is 7%. United Kingdom is our top country. Brazil's our second country. Spain, Germany, and the United States. Top city's always London. And then next city's Lima in Peru, Dublin, Birmingham, and Santiago. And they're all there, you know.
Wow.
No, that's the great thing about Spotify, but they just don't pay enough royalty. I mean, the record companies are just, it's like a license to print money.
Yeah.
They're just rolling in it. And we're getting 0.003 pence per stream. You know, it's a fucking joke.
Do you think you'll ever retire from music?
Me? Probably they have to cart me off on stage, mate. Like Tommy Cooper. The curtain will go down. I don't know. Yeah, you get to the point where you think, you know, but when we do festivals, we have such a great time.
Yeah.
And we've got songs that people recognise, you know. So we're playing lots of Rewind and Let's Rock festivals next year. And we have a great time. And we always pick a pub we're going to stop at with real ale. And it's like a day out.
Yeah.
So it's hard to think, you know, you're going to, you know, you can say, you can say.
Well,
I mean, the one thing that stopped us from getting together again was Steve, who had bowel cancer in 2003.
Right. And
when he said he was on his bed filled full of tubes and that, and he thought, why didn't we play more?
Yeah.
Why didn't we play more? He thought he was dying.
Right.
And so when he came back, then the Happy Mondays asked us to do a tour in 2005 with him. So we agreed. Up until then, we hadn't reformed, you know.
Yeah.
So we just do live gigs, and you know, hopefully we get some. We've recorded the material, but we just never got round to putting it out, you know.
Yeah. Okay, mate. Well, I'm running out of time. Sorry about this. So.
Yeah.
But thanks again, mate. It's been a really